all kinds of little certificates for him.
Using her phone, Jennifer Kimberly shows off the wall she created in her son's bedroom with artwork and photos. Kirk Kimberly was just 18 when he was murdered in Northern California in 2016. The last time Jennifer saw her son was the morning of October 17th. He left on his bike to go meet a friend.
I sent him a text around 3 o'clock asking him, just touching bases, and he didn't respond. And then I sent him one at 5 o'clock and he didn't respond. And then when my husband came home, I told my husband I was worried because he didn't respond.
The next day, flyers were posted asking for help to find Kirk, his bicycle, and a portable speaker he carried with him.
We knew he couldn't be identified to look for the bicycle and the speaker, that I knew those were items that he had with him.
2.5 weeks later, Kirk's body was found in a shallow grave on the campus of Sonoma State University.
It's located near a blackberry thicket. It is relatively difficult to get to that area if you're not looking for it.
Johnny Kearns is a private investigator and author who wrote a book on this case, which, for more than 2 years, remained unsolved.
It was a really tricky investigation. I interviewed over 50 people who were involved in Kirk's life, from ex-girlfriends to best friends to people he went to school with, and each of them had different pieces of the puzzle that they could give to me. And it really wasn't until about 6 months before I completed the book where I had the ability to see the whole picture.
In his book, released last year, Kearns named 19-year-old Daniel Carrillo as a prime suspect. Last month, Carrillo was arrested and charged with Kirk's murder.
He came to my house. I fed him lunch. He played video games with my son here.
Carrillo was one of Kirk's friends. This is a photo of the two of them skateboarding with a group shortly before Kirk's murder. What's unclear is why Carrillo would kill his friend.
This did not happen after a protracted fight. This happened quickly, and I believe Kirk was set up and didn't see it coming.
Kirk's bike and speaker have never been found. Daniel Carrillo has pled not guilty. Investigators say cell phone evidence puts Carrillo at the scene of the murder. News that only adds to Jennifer's loss.
I want him to know that it wasn't his choice. He didn't have a right to take someone else's life. I'm forever heartbroken. I'll never be the same. Kirk gave me purpose and meaning. He was my contribution to the world. And Kirk didn't get a second chance. I wish I could have saved him.
It seems really heartbreaking but puzzling at the same time if it was one of his friends. Let's bring in Ted Rollins and Julie Grant, who are with us tonight. Ted, let me start with you. I mean, it seems from your piece there that it wasn't really police putting this together, was it? Was it the author, this investigator, Johnny Kearns, putting the whole thing together?
Yes and no. I think that Johnny Kearns was obsessed with the case, did a great job of keeping this case alive for the family. I think he was a real pain in the butt at some level to investigators and the family because he didn't leave it go. But the investigation was continuing throughout the 2 years plus that it took for that arrest. I would be reluctant to say that Johnny led the investigators to Daniel Carrillo. I think they were onto him. They were just building their case.
So, Julie, how do you think that plays at a murder trial here? Do you think that somehow the defense tries to exploit the fact that there's an investigative journalist in the middle of all of this?
Perhaps, if I could venture an educated guess as maybe why it was PI Johnny Kearns who cracked this case, and he certainly did the legwork, as Ted reported, over 50 interviews. He said that there were sources close to this, right? Everybody who was close to Kirk Kimberly's life were the people he spoke to. And we know that oftentimes folks don't want to go to police. Okay, they may feel a little more comfortable talking to someone like a PI who may say, look, I'm working on this for the family, trying to get answers. If somebody's got a warrant for another case and they don't want to identify themselves to police and get themselves in more hot water or become a CI, they tend to steer clear. And we all know homicide investigations take a lot of time. They just do. And so thankfully, there is some light at the end of the tunnel for Kirk Kimberly's family members, Jennifer, his mother especially. And yes, perhaps many of the defense may explore that fact when they have all those investigators on the stand. But we know that they all logged tireless hours working this case as well. And I think it may be the tip of the iceberg because as, Ted reported with Johnny Kearns and all his work, he thinks that there were more people who were involved in this, as Daniel Carrillo allegedly was as well. So who knows, maybe he'll do some talking. We know he's got another separate case as well. So he's in the criminal justice system for something separate and apart from this homicide now. So maybe he will do some talking.
Yeah, let's take a listen to more from Johnny Kearns as he talks about Carrillo's criminal history.
One of the things that concerns me is that juvenile court judge Kenneth Noss is going to be making a determination here as to whether Carrillo can stand trial as an adult. And if not, there is the possibility that he could be released before his 25th birthday. Juvenile offenders have to be released prior to that point. So it's frightening to think that someone can commit such a cold-blooded, brutal, sociopathic murder and be back on the streets in 6 years. That's just crazy to me.
How old was he at the time of the murder?
He was 16 years old.
And arrested, now he is 19?
He is, that's correct.
Okay. And he was then 17 when he committed the home invasion, or yes, it's 17.
That's correct. And so he was charged as a juvenile for the home invasion. So he was due to get out. And I believe when he appeared at that February 28th hearing, where he was actually placed under arrest for the murder, him and his family were looking forward to him walking out a free man. Sources inside the correctional facility have indicated to me that Daniel's conduct was pretty atrocious behind bars as well. He was in trouble frequently for quarreling and misbehaving.
So, Ted, it seems like this Carrillo character has some history, has some issues, obviously has some problems here. Yet he was a friend of the victim here, of Kirk.
Yeah, they were skating buddies. They skateboarded together and rode bikes. The motive is the real head scratcher here. Johnny has has learned that there might have been some drug use going on, but neither one of them were big time, drug dealers. It's just really hard to get your head around what their issue was, if indeed Carrillo is responsible here. The big question here is, should he be charged as an adult or as a juvenile when this happened when he was 16 years old? But the viciousness of this crime, this is what the family is worried about. If he is tried as a juvenile, he will walk, as Johnny mentioned, when he's 25 years old. That's 6 years from now.
Yeah, that's nothing. And Julie, I mean, most of the horrific murder cases around the country, when the defendant's 16, I mean, most times they're tried as adults in many states.
You are correct, Vinny, absolutely. And hopefully those prosecutors are working on that process now, invoking whatever law there is in California that they can have that hearing to try to have him tried as an adult rather than as a juvenile. Because to Ted's point, which is excellent, if they have the evidence to get the conviction and then he cannot be punished, if in fact he is proven guilty in a court of law, that's going to be a real problem, especially because if what they're alleging is this conduct that heinous, stabbing someone multiple times at age 16, then who's to say what could happen if he is guilty and then allowed to go free very early on in his life. Hopefully prosecutors, I have a lot of confidence they'll do their due diligence and try to have him tried as an adult here.
They are doing that. They are pushing for it. And there was a hearing that was scheduled for Wednesday of this week. It is up to a juvenile court judge. He will make the decision. That hearing was postponed. So we didn't get it. We thought we were going to have an answer on Wednesday, one way or another, but that hearing was postponed.
Yeah, I did juvenile for a while in the prosecutor's office, and those waiver hearings are usually very contentious because everything is at stake. Prosecutors know it, And obviously the defendant knows that there's such a disparity and difference in the way defendants are treated if they're a juvenile or if they're waived up. Ted, you also spoke with Kirk's mother, and let's take a listen to this, because I think this is really important to hear what she would say to the defendant.
I'll never be the same. Kirk gave me purpose and meaning. He was my contribution to the world. And Kirk didn't get a second chance. Kirk didn't learn anything. I don't get to share. Kirk wasn't even done growing yet. He was still growing. So I know he doesn't care about me. I know if Daniel deserves a fair trial. And I want to tell Daniel I'm sorry for his family. I wish I could have saved him. I really don't know what I would say to Daniel.
It is so sad, but the reality of what these cases do to families is really coming out through this mom. I mean, parents all feel this when they lose a child, but she has a way of expressing it, Ted, that makes it so real for all of us.
Yeah, she's a broken woman, and you can only imagine her only child gone, taken, at the age of 18. She, has his room is now a memorial to him. She's pasted his photos, his artwork, certificates. And it just rips your heart out to know what she is dealing with and will for the rest of her life. And she wants justice. She's going to be strong. She's going to attend all the hearings. She has attended the hearings and plans to attend trial as well.
Yeah, incredibly sad, incredibly sad. And Julie, that's one of the things that motivates prosecutors. You understand that these are not hypothetical cases. These are real victims, and these crimes have real impacts.
Oh, absolutely, Vinny. I'm sure that Jennifer Kimberly probably has already formed relationships with those in the district attorney's office there and at the sheriff's department or the local police department there who took the case and filed the charges. And they're doing contacting her with updates and keeping her abreast of any new developments over the years and whatnot. And you can see that I think a lot of that energy that goes into the work by those in public service is motivated by that. You're exactly right. At the end of the day, we're all human beings and we've all experienced losses in one way or another. But this is probably the greatest, most devastating loss any human can undergo, the losing a child, burying their baby. And I think what probably stings the most is that her son's alleged killer was someone that they welcomed into their home at one point. So sad.
Absolutely. Julie Grant, Ted Rollins, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Stay safe.
Thank you, Vinny.
You too.
All right, when we come back, we're going to hear more from Kirk's mom. I think it's important to hear what she has to say. It's our system of justice, and this is a mom who's looking for something.
I didn't hear from him by 11 o'clock that night. I was in a panic, and I already knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what to do. So the next morning, I drove to his friends' houses where he normally would stay, and none of them had seen him.